Good morning. My name is Vasant Sundaram, and today I'll be talking about human gait. So there are three things that we'll be looking into today. First, we'll be looking into what human gait is, what are the different terminologies that are associated with human gait. Second, we'll be looking at the different phases associated with walking gait cycle. And third, we'll be looking into why do we need to do gait analysis. So by the end of this video, you will understand what is human gait, what are the different phases involved in human gait, and what are the importance of gait cycle. Let's dive into the topic. First, we need to understand what gait is. What do you mean by gait? Gait is nothing but the manner in which you walk. So every human being tends to have their own pattern of walking. The walking tends to differ from every person to person. So studying this pattern, the way they move, the lower extremities, the way they move from one point to another is called as gait. Now gait can be associated with animals as well as humans. Looking at animal gait, you look at the movement like running or walking associated with each animal, especially in a wild environment. So you study what are the factors that are involved in factors that tends to help a particular animal to move from one place to another. In case of human gait, we look at how a human being, such as ourselves, move from one place to another. This whole gait today will be concentrated on walking. So we need to know what are the different factors that are involved. So when I say factors, there are two things, kinetics and kinematic things. So the kinetics and kinematics are two different factors that tends to be involved when you're analyzing gait of a particular person. So basically when we are kids, when we are born, a newborn baby, you would have observed that the newborn baby usually lies on their belly. They slowly start to crawl first and then they start to walk. So bipedal walking, that is walking on two limbs, bipedal walking is usually a learned technique. So a body is trying to move from one location to another. So this learned technique is said to be very unstable. So bipedal walking mechanism is a very unstable method. So there are many factors that come into play, like I said, kinematics and kinetics. These are biomechanical factors. But not only that, we also have to look into the internal factors that are associated within our body. That is, nervous system and musculoskeletal system. How do they interplay? How do they come in? How do they tend to connect when you are trying to understand gait? So there are several factors that tends to play a important role when you're studying gait. Like I mentioned before, human gait is actually defined as an alternating movements of the lower extremities in a rhythmic motion that results in the forward progression of the body. So you want to move from point A to point B. So when you're moving, you're using your lower extremities, that is your legs. So there is a rhythmic motion. Here in this case, the rhythmic motion is nothing but cyclic motion that is associated. So when your cyclic motion is basically divided into two things, stance phase and swing phase. So gait has many terminologies. The common one is called a stance phase and the swing phase. The stance phase is nothing where one of the limb or either both of the lower limbs are said to be in contact with the ground. Whereas a swing phase is when your limb is not in contact with the ground. So based on this, an entire gait cycle is said to be running. So now we're looking at human gait. The first thing we need to know is what are the different terminologies. Because when you're diving deep into human gait, we need to know a better understanding. We need to have a background of what is what. So let's look into the terminologies. First, we need to see what step length is. When you're talking about step length, it's actually the distance between the heel contact of one foot and that of the other foot. So if I start my gait cycle with the right foot, the heel strike of my right foot and the heel strike of my left foot, after going through the swing phase and coming back to contact with the ground. So the distance between these two heels in the opposite contralateral legs is called as step length. Whereas when you're looking at stride length is nothing but the distance of the initial contact of one foot to the following initial contact of the same foot. Now I said in example is when I start my gait cycle with my right foot. So there's a right heel contact, and again when I repeat again, it goes to the stance phase, and then when it goes to the swing phase, my right leg tends to go through the swing phase and then comes back again in contact with the ground. So the entirety of going through a stance phase and the swing phase of the same leg is called as stride length. The next term you will commonly see is a single support phase. The name itself defines what a single support phase is. So one of the limb is always in contact with the ground. That is what a single support phase is. So one limb is always in contact with the ground. That is, the other limb is in the swing phase. That is when you are not in contact with the ground. So your entire body weight tends to be relying on that one single leg. Now double support phase. When you're looking at double support phase, this is when both your legs are in contact with the ground. Now we come to another something called as foot flat phase. A foot flat phase or a loading phase is usually observed in a gait cycle. So after a heel contact of my right leg, after starting out the gait cycle, we are starting off by having a contact phase. That is when your heel is striking on the ground. And slowly your left leg is moving, your left leg is pushing off. So your toe is off the ground. When the toe is off the ground, your entire right foot after heel contact is lying flat on the ground. In that case, this is called as foot flat phase. This is when the entire body weight is equally distributed and supported by one single limb. So entire body weight is distributed in equally distributed and relies completely on one single limb. And the leg absorbs this weight, the shock absorption, as well as it maintains in order to create a forward momentum. So basically, gait, you're trying to move from one location to another. So the weight has to be balanced. At the same time, you need to make sure that as soon as the next leg comes in contact with the ground, your other leg is off the ground. So this is how the cyclic motion takes to take place. The other important terminology is called as cadence. So cadence is nothing but at the rate at which a person walks. So it's expressed in steps per minute. So how many steps can a person take per minute? That's what is called as cadence. So these are commonly used terminologies in a gait cycle. Now let's look into what a spatial gait parameters are. Spatial gait parameters again are used to analyze the step length, step width, the foot angle with respect to a line of progression. In this image, you'll be able to see that the left and the right is actually divided by one single midline. This is called as a line of progression. Based on this line of progression, we'll be able to calculate the foot angle, the step angle, and to differentiate the step length and the stride length. So like I mentioned before in the previous slide, what a step length is. It's a length between the heel contact of one foot with respect to the contralateral leg, heel contact of the next foot. So you can see in this slide, in this picture, you can see that the right foot, the step length of the right foot, up till the left step length of the left step length is usually associated with the right foot heel contact and the left foot heel contact. That's what the entire step length is. When you're looking at stride length, look at the stride length that is above the line of progression. It starts with the left leg and then it ends with again the heel contact of the left leg. So this is what the entire stride length is. It's also called as an entire left gait cycle. So you can measure the step width using the line of progression and also the step angle. So how far the step angle is or how wide the steps are being taken from the line of progression. The line of progression is nothing but the midline that separates the right and the left foot. Now when you're talking about walking gait cycle, so there's a huge difference between walking gait cycle and a running gait cycle. During a walking gait cycle, there's always one limb that is always in contact with the ground. Okay, there's always a single support phase. But when you're looking at a running gait, you can see that there is a moment called as a float phase. This is when both the limbs are not in contact with the ground. They are both in swing phase. This is usually achieved by high speed and velocity. As we tend to move faster and faster, there is a small brief time where both the limbs are not in contact with the ground. Now we are just concentrating on what walking gait cycle is. what are the different phases in it. So I have mentioned that stance phase and swing phase. So when you're looking at stance phase, there is contact phase, foot flat phase, mid stance phase, and propulsive phase. So in the contact phase is when the heel is actually striking. This is the starting point of a gait cycle. Okay. So when you're striking, using your right leg, your heel is striking the ground, and your left leg, the toe is pushing off. So it has not left the ground, but it has started to push off. So this is where the whole process takes place. Now we have foot flat. Foot flat is when your entire right leg, after the heel strike, is completely flat on the ground. This is where your weight distribution happens. This is where you're maintaining the forward momentum. Followed by that, we have the mid stance phase. So mid stance phase is nothing but a phase where it is the same thing that your right foot is completely flat on the ground, but your torso, that is your upper body, is also in line with the leg, in line with the weight of the limb that is carrying. So it is said to be perpendicular. It is said to be in line. That is where the mid stance phase is. Mid stance phase doesn't concentrate on shock absorption. It rather depends on the balance of the entire body on a single limb. Then we slowly move on to the propulsive phase. This is when your right foot, after the mid stance phase, is said to push off. So your heel is said to be off the ground, and it's said to be relying on the toes or the forefoot. This is when your left foot is already crossed the swing phase and is about to do a heel strike. Now this is the entirety of the stance phase. Now we're looking at the swing phase. This is usually a single support phase. Like as mentioned before, during the running gait analysis, we have something called as float phase. This is when the swing phase, where both the limbs are not in contact with the ground. But in walking gait cycle, the swing phase, there is always one single support phase. That is, when one of the limbs is always there in contact with the ground. Let's look at an image to have a better understanding of what walking gait cycle is. The first, there is the stance phase and the swing phase. Let's concentrate on the dominant leg here. So the dominant leg here will be your right leg. So the right leg starts with the heel strike, and your left foot is actually having a toe. So the entire thing is called as double support phase, because right now both your legs are in contact with the ground. And after that, the loading response, after the heel strike, like I mentioned before, after the heel strike, your entire right foot is said to be flat on the ground. And while this is happening, your toe is lightly off the ground. In this image, you might see that the toe is actually is said to be on the ground, but is actually lightly off the ground. The entire weight is actually being forced onto a single limb. So this is called as a loading response. This is where you try to maintain forward momentum. So your body tends to move forward. And this causes a mid stance phase. A mid stance phase, you can see the trunk or the body is said to be in line with the dominant leg. So the entire body weight is on the right foot or the right limb. And this is where, instead of shock absorption, this is where you tend to maintain your body balance. The left foot is actually going through a swing phase right now. So what happens? It is off the ground and is moving. It's going through the swing phase cycle. And the next is called as a terminal stance and a pre-swing stance. The terminal stance is nothing but the propulsive. So as the term suggests, the propulsive phase is nothing but where your toe is pushing off. It's propulsing you towards the forward movement. So you're trying to move from the one place to another, right? So this time you need something to push off. So what happens during the terminal stance or the propulsive phase, your right foot, after completely lying flat on the ground, it is pushing off using your toe. So it pushes off using the forefoot or the toe and you're moving forward. By this time, what happens is your left foot comes into contact, it does a heel strike and comes into contact with the ground. This is called pre-swing and terminal stance phase. So the entire thing comes under stance phase. Now after the left foot has come into contact with the ground, right foot is said to be off the ground. So here dominant leg, the right foot, is said to be off the ground. And what happens? It goes to the swing phase. So we have three legs: toe off, mid swing, and terminal swing. So toe off is when it pushes off the ground and your toe is completely off. And then we have the mid swing, where it goes through the one layer, where it is crossing the other leg, and then terminal swing is when it is about to do a heel strike. So this is how we separate the double support, single support, and double support phase. So entire walking gait and in the entire walking gait analysis, you can see that there are two single support phases and two double support phases that needs to take place. For one complete gait cycle, we can see that about 60% of the entire gait cycle relies on stance phase and 40% is on the swing phase. So this is the basic understanding of what human gait is, what are the different terminologies associated with the human gait, and what are the different phases in a walking gait cycle. Now the last question is, what are the importance of gait analysis? Why do we need to do gait analysis? So first is injury prevention. So basically when we tend to do gait analysis, we are able to differentiate between a symmetric gait and a symmetric gait. There is nothing but differentiating from a normal gait to an abnormal gait. So when we are doing that, we are comparing results. We are able to find out if there is any abnormal gait patterns. If there is any abnormal gait patterns at an earlier stage, we are able to rectify it and prevent any injuries that tends to take place in the future. For example, some people may apply more load on the right leg rather than on the left leg. So rectifying the small mistakes might prevent them from creating any injuries within our lower limb. This is what the main reason is, injury prevention. Post-treatment assessment, that is the second reason. So basically after, for example, you have undergone an ACL injury or you have undergone some kind of ankle sprain and you are going through the treatment, any kind of injury in the lower limb. And after rectifying it after the treatment, you are asked to do a gait analysis to see how far you deviate from the normal value of the gait. So normal gait values will be something else, that's called a baseline value. And after surgery, after rectifying that mistake, for example, you are injured yourself and you have come across some kind of problem and you go through a treatment stage and you have a different gait pattern right now. So what happens is they tend to compare it with their baseline gait values to see how far you have deviated and how close it can be brought together. This is called as a post-treatment assessment. The third one is identifying gait disorders due to neurological damages. These are usually associated with neuroscientists, where they tend to do researches with Parkinson's or any other neurological damages that tends to alter the gait or any balance or coordination based movements. So far we have seen on a clinical front. But when looking at sports performance or ergonomic research, they are mostly associated with the research performances. So there is a research-based analysis. So sports performance, you can practically see that when you're doing gait analysis, we are able to optimize a particular performance. Because gait is not just about movement, because we are just looking at walking, but we also analyze at what angles are there. For example, knee angle, your ankle angle, they tend to vary it. So we can compare the results of different two athletes. You can see, for example, take a sprinter, for example. So when you're taking a sprinter, we are able to analyze his gait pattern. How fast is he able to move? What is his body orientation? We are able to study that and we are able to implement it into another athlete. So we can see the differences and we can improve his performance, athletic performance. This is what is another important aspect of gait analysis. The last one is ergonomic research. Ergonomics is nothing but how surrounding things affect a particular movement. For example, footwears. There are different companies that tend to bring on new footwears. So first they test it out with the general population to see if there's any changes in the gait, if it is comfortable or not. So how does it affect their day-to-day activities? So these are the things called as ergonomic researches. So this is also associated with gait analysis. There are a lot of uses by gait analysis, and these are a few of them. So today we have seen what human gait is, what are the different terminologies associated with human gait, different phases involved in walking gait analysis, and what is the importance of gait analysis. So far we have learned this. Thank you for the opportunity provided to me to explain these concepts. Thank you.